So I don't want to waste too much of your time because I know that you probably do have a couple more sessions after this. Um, but before we jump in, like I kind of want to show everybody who's watching that a lot of the sports psychologists that I'm interviewing aren't just people who just preach the concepts, but they've actually been through it as well. So I understand that you used to be a competitive runner, right? You ran the 800 meter. So what was
Yeah,
that like for you?
I'll say like I want to define competitive. I mean, I was a high school athlete, so I was very mid. Um, so as far as the achievements, but in certainly after that, I remained competitive. Um, I did some 25Ks, again, all very recreationally. Competed in flag football for 17 years every Sunday with a group of friends. Moved into CrossFit, done that for a while, CrossFit Games. Again, never achieving at a high level, but really enjoying the competition throughout my adult life. Some Spartan races, Tough Mudders. So yeah, lots of competition, but never excelling to the point where I was going to be considered anything more than a recreational athlete.
Feel like that's the case for like a lot of athletes though. Like it might not be I think that sports psychology is something that's useful to all athletes and kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
the entire sphere. Like it doesn't have to be kind of pursuing the sport at the highest level, right? So
Yes, 1,000%. If I could, again, you're not going to keep me long. Don't worry about it. I'm here for you. I want to do a good job for you and anybody who might listen.
thank you
Um,
so much.
yeah, no, sports psychology, you could really think of it as like the performance, the psychology of excellence,
Mhm.
the psychology of performance excellence. We have taken this, and I know I've applied these skills and I've helped musicians, actors, and actresses. I've got colleagues that are working with fire departments and police departments. Many sports psychology colleagues are working with military. We've consulted with businessmen and women. The idea is that if you want to perform your best, you have to do something different. You have to interact with your thoughts and feelings differently to take the committed actions and behaviors you need to take to excel. And so these concepts, I did this course a few years back called the psychology of performance, how to be your best in life. And the feedback from that course was great because people had said, yeah, I can apply this to my everyday life. So, and then I've also consulted with tons of high school athletes, and a lot of them are very good, but a tiny percentage, makes it to pro levels. So, even from high school to college, I forget, it's, certainly less than 10%, and then much less than that to go pro. So, this is not the psychology for elite people only. If you want to be your best, sports psychology has something to offer.
I completely agree with you. So I play professional badminton. I've been playing in international and national tournaments. But I never really knew or considered sports psychology to be something that was very important until I actually started getting into it. Like I started working with a licensed sports psychologist and I was like, wait, the inner game is like actually a lot more important than I thought it was.
Yeah.
So like training physically is only really 50% of that equation. And then there's like an entire side of just untapped potential with sports psychology. But I feel like sports psychology is just like a term that's tossed around a little bit in this like whole conversation. Like people talk about visualization, they talk about like positive self-talk. I feel like it's a lot more difficult to kind of do those things, or it's
Mhm.
difficult to know the exact steps to do those things. So, what's like a practical angle or a practical exercise that you can kind of like use all of these sports psychology concepts towards?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Could you rephrase that? I have like six different answers, but I want to target what you're saying.
So, like if let's go back to when you were doing your high school like track, your high school running.
Yeah.
So, when you were an athlete, what do you think that sports psychology concept that would have been the most useful for you
All
would
right.
be?
Wow. Again, I have a couple of answers to that. If I take myself back there, again, this is decades ago. So what's fortunately changed is that you're doing stuff like this. Sports psychology wasn't a thing, or I mean, it was a thing, but it was only like at the Olympics and it was just getting started when I was in high school, but it wasn't anything that you talked about. So for one, I didn't even know that there was a psychology for sport. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, like I didn't know it was the last class I took in college as a psychology major, wanted to go into clinical psych, dead set on it. There's this elective, and I'm like, sports psychology, what is this? My senior year of college, like I could have used this information for like 8+ years. Didn't even know it was a thing. I just kept running through whatever was going on in my head or in my body. And I'm like, and I get into this class, and it's all about these concepts that you're starting to talk about, whether it be visualization or just the interaction of thoughts and behavior. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is a thing. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do immediately. So if you back it up, I mean, that would have been the first thing is for me to even know that there's something that you can do about your thinking. Like so many of my clients, we think and we are constantly swimming in thoughts and emotions. So it's amazing to kind of think that, we think we can do anything without interacting with psychology. People are like, oh, no, I'm fine. I don't need that. They've got this real pathological model. I don't need sports psych unless I'm in a struggle or I'm doing bad. But it's like, no, we've got all this random programming from TikTok to our parents to coaches. And we just have this program that comes out depending on the country we live in, the city we grew up on, our friend circle. And we're programmed and we have a way of thinking. And if we just believe that and accept that, how many times have you heard somebody kind of say, well, that's just the way I grew up? Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's the context, but why, you got crappy programming. Why do you want to stay with it? And of
Yeah.
course, I say it much more professionally and kindly than that. But as I look at myself, I'm like, there were so many thoughts that I had had about what I could do, what I couldn't do, what I deserved to be, what I didn't deserve, and none of it was based on any evidence. It didn't certainly reflect. I even had my coach kind of tell me that if the most talented runner on my team would have had my work ethic, it's like he's like how amazing that guy would be. Now, of course, I wish he had reversed it, and I think he was kind of saying like if I had more talent, because my work ethic was there, but I couldn't go any faster. Anyway, another story. But actually, I'll share with you the one that I do reflect on is because my identity was wrapped up in being a runner. And it was not a great choice because, as I said, it was very mid, best of the worst, worst of the best. But I loved it. I ran cross country, then indoor, outdoor, ran during the summer. My best friends loved the team. Like it was a wonderful high school experience. And I wanted to kind of break 2 minutes in a half mile. Or rather, oh, that would have been fantastic. I wanted to break 2:10. I was running like 2:11, 2:11, 2:12, 2:11 all my junior year. And I couldn't get up past that hump. My senior year, same thing. It's just going on and on and on. It's like there's, sometimes you get that magical, whether it's a 225 bench or a certain amount of home runs, like you get these blocks of these magic numbers that you just got to break through, the extra pressure. I wasn't aware of all of it, but clearly it was there. And I kept coming across the finish line my senior year, outdoor, last chances, 2:11, but not tired. And then I'd immediately go, well, at first my immediate reaction was like, damn it, if I just ran harder, like I do this, I'd be able to do it. Like I have the energy. But then I go underneath the bleachers every week and vomit as if I was exhausted. And I remember thinking, like, this is weird. Like, what's going on? And then just let it go because I was a high school athlete and I didn't really look at it. After graduate school and reflecting on it, what I think was going on was this unconscious ego protection that because this idea that I had to break 210 was somehow, I don't know if it was a measure of my worth, but certainly my identity as a runner, it was like just this big marker that my unconscious mind protected me by giving me an excuse by not letting me run as fast as I wanted. I was not doing this intentionally at all, but it prevented me from really giving everything because then
Okay.
I felt like it built in an excuse so that I could run faster. I just have to do this. It kept hope alive. And what's weird about that is that psychologically it protected me, but performance wise, it was actually causing the very thing that I didn't want to have happen. Because if you don't break 210, you're not breaking 210. If you fail, you fail. Doesn't matter the reason. So
Yeah.
only psychological, but my girlfriend still loved me. My parents were still fine. My teammates were okay. I mean, Nike wasn't going to, hire me or give me an endorsement either way. So all the consequences that I was suffering anyway. And I wish I had a psychologist or somebody that would have made that connection, because then it would have been like, what do you really have to lose if you do give it your all? And it would have been, well, actually, then nothing. Might that have freed me up?
Makes
Now, good news,
sense.
I ran a 2:09 my last race. I don't know if the coach was a little bit
Let's
fast,
go.
but officially I
Nice.
did. But could I have broken 2:05? Could I have run a 1:59? I don't know. And I'll never know now. So the short answer, with I hope that I illustrated through there, is that we are all interacting with thoughts and feelings all the time. We have programs that we don't understand that even exist. And sports psychology can help reveal those things like visualization. I don't have any like quick tips. I mean, I've got tons of quick tips for you. Um, but I don't want to reduce sports psychology to this simple thing. I've worked with teams where they're like, okay, just give us a 10-minute presentation and give us something. It's like, oh yeah, okay, well that's like telling somebody to rehabilitate your knee after a torn ACL in 20-minute exercises. It's like
That
we
makes
need you back
sense.
next week. Now, again, that doesn't mean that we can't. I think I've given some wonderful 2-minute, you know, I don't want to say superficial, but quick tips. But I want to respect the field and how deep it can actually go. Doesn't mean that you need to have big problems. Yeah, there are quick, like my favorite one is what's important now. If you want to win, you have to focus on what's important right now. And that's worked with elite level athletes as a quick focus. But it could also go much, much deeper than that. If your identity is wrapped up and you're carrying your self-worth on whether or not you're gonna, hit under par, that's hard to do. If you've been struggling like me, where you can't break through a PR despite your training for a number of seasons, there's something under there that's holding you back. Sports psychology has a lot to offer, whether you're in a slump or, again, to the point, you're fine. But if you want to be a champion, you want to be in the top 1%, you have to do what 99% of the other people either can't or won't. And that's
Yeah.
where sports psychology can give you the competitive edge. Most people aren't training it.
So it's less of like one or two off practical tips, and it's less like a sprint, more like a marathon. Like it's like this journey of growth where you have to like periodically understand more about like the underlying issues of why you're not able to do it. Is that what you're saying?
Again, I don't want to overgeneralize it. And working with teams, again, everything from high school through professional, there is great benefit to some common strategies, some general principles, some introductions to the field. Because most people don't ever talk about this. Like you either are mentally tough or you're not. Nobody trains their mind. So the things like pre-performance routines, how to recover from a mistake, um, focus strategies, things like mindfulness training as a way to integrate to help your mind think more clearly and differently and to focus. Visualization is a practice that you said you can't just say, okay, well, just picture it. There's a whole science underneath about how and when and how long and what details and what it could be used for. I mean, these are scientifically validated, tested strategies that are important. You can't just say, okay, well, just eat better. Just eat more
Yeah.
vegetables. It's like we don't want to reduce it to that. Now, of course, if you just eat more vegetables in general, you will do better. Just drink more water, you'll probably do better. But going to a nutritionist, for example, and knowing exactly how much proteins to carbs and when to fuel is going to be much more precise and much more effective. So,
Hmm.
yes, if you're this is an introduction to the field, there's a lot of great books out there, some podcasts. I did a mental toughness in 60 seconds YouTube series that was intended just be like, yeah, you want a 1 minute, 2 minute advice, and people say that that was great. But that's the least of what this field can do. And if that doesn't work, and I'd say 50% of the time, not an official estimate, but a lot of the time people will be like, that's great and that helps. But if you want to dive into it, there's so much more that the field offers.
I think that's a lot to digest as well. Like I think like now I'm just considering the fact that I haven't really gone deep enough into like this entire field to really understand it completely. Like um I've learned from the sports psychologist that I used to work with that there are like tips and tricks that you can use like a mistake ritual. So like every single time that I make a mistake during practice, I'll like kind of reset using that. And then I started getting into like mindfulness journaling. Not really because it was like a trending thing, because I know that mindfulness, like just journaling in general, has kind of been like a trend that a lot of athletes and just a lot of people have kind of gotten behind. I think I started it for that reason, but then over time I just kind of enjoyed the like the feeling of having a clear head and just being able to like fill it with better thoughts and more positive like affirmations when I was playing or even just doing things outside of my sport. So I don't know. That was completely off topic, but
Well, no,
I don't know. I feel
actually,
like this,
it's not off topic. That's great because what you're finding is another part of sports psychology is about, finding that balance in that sense that you're
yeah.
more than an athlete. And if you take care of your physical health and your mental health, as well as your nutritional health, right?
Mhm.
Those are things that are then going to enhance your performance. So if you are finding that journaling, for example, is something that you use as part of your recovery, again, a lot of athletes don't emphasize their recovery enough, but that's where we grow, then that is having a performance enhancing effect. So yeah, sports psychology would include that, but as I said, that's like sort of step one. If you want to go deeper and become more sophisticated, I promise you, people like Tom Brady and others, they were much more disciplined about sports psychology, mental training, Olympians, at the highest level. They have a very structured way and they're testing it. The other thing that I have to jump in is I've been known because I push back against positive thinking. And I don't do that because I'm against it, but I've had so many athletes come in where it doesn't work. I really specialize in performance anxiety, and it's particularly in that population with perfectionists and things like that, where, mistakes, they can't just reset. It's like, those strategies of, yeah, you know what, learn from it and move on. That's all cliche and it works when you can do it. But a lot of athletes will then have blocks about it and they can't think or they can't be confident. Like if I'm, presenting to your tournament and you've got, let's say 50 athletes that are competing and I tell everybody to visualize the win and believe that they could win and I get everybody's confidence up, only the champion's going to think I did a good job and everybody else is going to think that it didn't work and I suck.
Yeah.
And should the guy who's ranked 100 really believe that he could beat the number one ranked guy? Or should he actually acknowledge that he has no right to be confident and then put all of that nervous energy, which is very healthy, into training and preparing and coming up with a really good strategy? I think the latter is going to work a lot better. If I'm in the
Yeah,
woods
for
and you
sure.
tell me to just visualize that the bear is a circus bear and that he's friendly and take a deep breath and calm down, that is not going to make me feel better. I'm going to become more anxious because you're not preparing me for the real danger. So when we tell athletes to do all of this positive thinking and stuff and not recognize that you could lose your starting position. If you make a mistake, you will be embarrassed. Your teammates will be upset. You could be the reason that you lose. I can't stand it sometimes when we push too much and say that we have to kind of block all those things out and just focus on what we're doing. No, we got to acknowledge that these threats, like that bear, is real and interact with it in a way that's going to help us perform our best in that threatening situation. And that's when my athletes tend to do better. But that's not a quick 1 minute tip that you can give.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. Like being able to channel that nervous energy into something that's actually useful. Like I don't know, I read somewhere that like there's like a line between nervous energy and like excitement or like arousal, and they're like in a sense kind of the same emotion or kind of the same feeling. And you can
Mhm.
kind of like tell your brain, I'm not, or maybe not that I'm not nervous, but I can use this nervousness towards something. Is that kind of
Yeah, keep rolling with it, my man. You got it.
there we
Yeah.
go.
Because
Yeah, so like
physiologically, fear and excitement are the exact same thing. My heart rate is up, my fight or flight response is up. Maybe not the exact same, but very, very close. It's just how we're interpreting it. If I'm being chased by that bear, it's going to feel similar to being on a roller coaster. I don't like being chased by a bear because I'm afraid I'm going to die. I enjoy the physiological arousal and intensity of the roller coaster because I know or believe that I'm safe. So, yes, as long as you can truly believe it, because it's one thing. Here's another thing about sports psych. Sometimes people are like, well, you just got to say this and say this. I don't know. I could keep telling myself I'm Batman, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and put on a cape and go fight crime. Like I'm never going to
yeah.
believe, it's you have plenty of things in your head that you will think of and then disagree with. And that's how I like to work with my athletes, is that it's a lot more than just having a thought, positive or negative, or saying something to yourself. What are you attaching to? What can you let go of? Like if I lose a race and I come back and I say I suck, it's like, Well, do I really believe that at the biggest level, or do I just realize I'm just pissed at myself? It's much more about what's the investment in the thoughts. So if I can truly believe that, you know what, this is a physiological arousal. Yeah, I'm scared about some things, but you know what, this is an opportunity. I love this sport. I get to compete. I'm very grateful for it. You know, man, this is also excitement. Then it can, if you believe that, then you can create that safety. But you can't just keep trying to convince yourself of something that you don't believe. If you're terrified and
Mhm.
you're like, no, I'm just excited. No, I'm just excited. No, this is just happiness. You can see in my face that's not working.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, um, with the athletes that you do work with, like I'm sure they come to you with like a lot of different problems, right? Like I'm sure it's not like they all have to be, or not have to be, but they're all probably going to come to you with like their own unique circumstances. They're probably playing different sports. So how does it like do you feel like there's like a universal like connection between all of these athletes that the problems that might rise in athletes who are playing a team sport can be connected to the ones who are playing in an individual sport? Because I know you said that you were like your main focus is with performance anxiety. So are there like connections between those types of sports and like are there differences? Like how do you approach working with those types of like different types of athletes?
Yeah, great question. And it's really a mixture of both in the sense that, of course, there are patterns and there's a lot of what I like to say normal humanity about the way the brain works and the way emotions work and the way performance is tied to thoughts and feelings. I mean, that's why we've got the field of psychology and sports psychology. So you've got a lot of those general principles that can be applied. But then I also want to be very, very sensitive to the athlete in front of me. So like even if you tell me that you've got performance anxiety, you also have you're a different age, different sport, different history, you had a different line of coaches that I've never met, your parents, like there's a whole bunch of other things that could influence about how much and what your presentation might be like. Now we don't have to go into a deep analysis, day one and get all that information but we'd start off with the general principles, but I would want to be very, very sensitive to always offering you and saying like, hey, this is a lab. Let me know how this works or how it doesn't. Working with a golfer, for example, with performance anxiety is, of course, going to look different than a defensive end in football. There's going to be a different level of arousal he needs to get to. There's going to be maybe the content of the thoughts might be different. The particular context when he or she is getting upset, might be different. Um, but I would always anchor it into the things, from a performance anxiety standpoint, is normalizing that you should be anxious because of all the things that I said earlier. That our anxieties that actually one of very four core human emotions. We're happy, sad, mad, and scared. And three of those emotions don't feel good. So why would we expect ourselves to always be happy and confident? And I spend a lot of my first sessions with performance anxiety, for example, regardless of the sport or level, kind of establishing these baseline things to create safety in the anxiety with just basic psychological principles, because then you can build on it. So then whether it's, before a World Series game or before, you're going to get, you might get cut from, varsity in high school. Oh, that alarm is going off. That's my anxiety that's trying to protect me because I really care about this. How do I respond to it as opposed to just believing it? The process will be the same, but the content might be different.
Okay. And do you think like having like a background as an athlete kind of helps you? Because I know like I'm sure you're not going to be telling all of these athletes like maybe for that like arousal theory. Like if there's like a specific name behind the arousal theory, maybe like you won't explain like all of the science behind it. But does kind of having that background as an athlete give you the ability to connect with them like a little bit better and explain the concept so that they can understand it better?
Again, brilliant question. Um, I would say yes, of course, but I would be very careful that just because somebody's been an athlete, that doesn't mean that they understand sports psychology and can then just coach according to their experience. Like you can be a mentor,
Hmm.
but I would not encourage anybody to think that just because they were in the NFL, NBA, or something, an Olympian, that they are now a master in sports psychology. It's kind of like saying, like, yeah, I had cancer, so I can go help other people with cancer. No, do you have a medical degree? Like that's much more important. In the same
Yeah.
way that I don't, if I have cancer, my doctor doesn't have to have cancer to kind of know what I'm going through. If he did, and he could empathize with me, of course, that would be helpful. but I wouldn't really want it to be all about the doctor telling me his story either. So, yeah, I mean, my athletic experiences and if I've gone through what others have gone through, if it's helpful to share that, I will, if I can have some empathy with it. But what's much more important is my degree and my training and the fact that I've seen thousands of athletes with that experience. And I can kind of talk from that perspective, from a science background, more than, yeah, this is what happened to me in high school.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, and then I know that you were telling me a little bit earlier that like it's not really like the entire field isn't really about like giving those one or two quick tips to athletes. But like for some of the junior athletes, like the younger kids who might benefit for something from something like this, even if they don't understand it completely, um, what would you say is like something that they can start doing today, like to really kind of see the benefits, maybe not quickly, but just over time see the benefits of sports psychology and just kind of understanding the field. Like what
So
is
what
that one
are you talking
technique that they
about?
can use?
Yeah, what age group are you talking about? How?
Anywhere from, like the 10-year-old athletes all the way to 19.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a great developmental stage. And again, the 10-year-old would be different than the 16-year-old would be different than the 19-year-old. Um, but I do love this question because you're right. When we start off, I'm distracted, but I actually had a really young uh, baseball player when I was very excited about all this other stuff, and I made it way too complicated because I just went in and really what he just needed to know was a very basic, as you're asking, sports psych concept. And I mean, I just got way too collegiate level with this 10-year-old. And of course, he didn't understand it and he did terrible the next day. Mom was like, he's crying. Like, we're not coming back. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. Bring him back one more time. I know what I did wrong. And then I just taught him how to focus and take a deep breath, and he did much better. And that's all he needed. I had skipped like that first level. So I'll try to be efficient. Like for the 10, 11, 12 year olds, um, it would probably just really kind of start off by just the general concepts, the idea that um, what they're thinking and whatever's going on in their head, I would, as parents or coaches, kind of align and validate their feelings and then say, and I'm here to help you out. Here's what you can do instead. And that's where you then teach the basic things like focus on the ball, your thoughts and feelings, we respect them, but like baseball doesn't care about what you think or feel, it cares about what you do. So let's keep investing in, your mechanics or focus on this. So kind of easing and sort of creating a safety in their psychological experiences. I don't know that they would need like the general athlete whose recreational sports needs the mental training that young. The bigger influence, particularly at that age, is the coaches. I would highly recommend that coaches being, including much more positive reinforcement. Research has shown that a 5-to-1 ratio of constructive or rather positive reinforcement to constructive criticism is the ideal ratio. And I've never seen that really personally in any environment, 5-to-1 ratio. It's usually a whole bunch of negativity in coaching. And that'll set up the athletes developmentally later and keep them out of my office from all the anxiety that gets built up. And same thing with parents then too. Like we do want to encourage our kids, but we also want to kind of balance and catch them doing things right. And this is both in sports as well as out of it. So as
Mhm.
they're getting into like 13 and 14 and 15, that's when developmentally they start to care more about their sports. They might start to train more. They might drop other sports to kind of start to specialize. And that's where I will tend to see a little bit more performance anxiety start to show their first head. And people are like, well, I don't know why. I was doing great, but now all of a sudden I'm on varsity, and now all of a sudden I'm nervous about this or that. And that's where I would say the strategies that we reviewed earlier in this conversation, those are the ones that I'd really be putting out. Is that, of course, you're nervous. Yeah, validate it. I would be very careful about forcing the positive thinking because that could make it worse. Now, introduce it because half the time when you tell them, okay, is that helping you? And they'll be like, no, okay, well, it would be more helpful to focus on this, to have a pre-performance routine to kind of be like, well, when you're hitting your best or when you're shooting your best, what do you typically think of? Try to pull it from the athlete themselves about when they're doing well. What are you thinking and feeling and doing? And can you replicate that? And introduce the idea that they can be intentional about their psychology. It's not just something that they were like, well, you just have a bad day. I would be teaching the idea of a growth mindset from both coaching and athletes, but in the cultures that these athletes are working in. That instead of being punished for mistakes and being yelled at all the time about what they're doing wrong, creating a safe environment in practice where it's really taught and they have reflections after mistakes, giving the athletes time to be like, maybe a coach would say, okay, do you know what you did there? Because they're still learning and developing. Yeah, I did this. I should have done that. Okay, great. Do that next time. It helps the athletes kind of take responsibility for their mistakes and they're correcting it. That culture of the growth mindset at that young age, as well as the idea of kind of normalizing the anxiety to prevent it as they become more invested. And then when you're getting, past that point, then depending on the person, there's any number of techniques. But if you want to stay in the younger ages, I'd say I'd start it between 10 and 13.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. O'Connor. Like I started this entire project mainly to kind of like showcase the benefits of sports psychology to the athletes in badminton. Because in the United States, where I live, uh, badminton's a pretty underserved sport. It's not doesn't really get a lot of recognition. A lot of the athletes are mainly just focused on their physical training, and even the training, like the physical training, isn't super big. Like the sport just doesn't have a lot of support.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to do is kind of like bring this new angle that, you can also train this way. You can also train your mental side. And it's not just for badminton. Like you can do it for all sorts of different sports. So I guess it's like my own unique way of giving back to um the badminton community that have done so much for me. And I'm really, really happy that you took the time out of your day to help me with this. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Um,
you're very, very welcome. Did you get everything you needed out of it?
yeah, everything that I needed and more. Thank you so,
Okay.
so, so much.
Great. All right. Well, best wishes to everybody out there. Yeah, keep it up. And I hope you can invest in it. Just, again, not only be better athletes, but have a better quality of life and happiness. I believe in all of you. Get after it.
So if anyone's interested in kind of like finding you and following your work, where can they do that?
Yeah. You can reach me via my website, dreddieoconnor.com. There's links on there. I do have that course, which would be a great link for you, the psychology of performance. It can give you a nice in-depth overview. It's like a 12-hour course. You can get it online. I think it's usually on sale for pretty cheap, so it's through the Great Courses Company. And then I also have a link there to my YouTube channel, which has got a lot of that mental toughness in 60 seconds, and that's at Sports Dr. Eddie. So all those links are on the website. Feel free to take those. Those are free, and hopefully they'll help you out.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, my
Bye,
friend.
Dr.
Best
O'Connor.
wishes.